Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. I don't think the mic is picking any of that up. Oh, we have it. We got it. In our hands. It shipped out a couple of days ago. Finally got it. My name is Matthew. And we will be really scuffily, real poorly, not welly, looking at the Final Fantasy XIV TTRPG core rulebook. I don't have a camera to stream from, which is why, if you're viewing, you can see my beautiful face on the camera that's not there. Oof. Oh, come on, come on. Oh, we're doing okay. But I don't have a camera to do like a proper like top-down, big lights everywhere and flip at the page and, you know, do the whole hand. Also, my hands are pretty gnarly too. My cat likes getting them. Well, we don't have any of that. So, in a real scuffed way, we're just going to kind of be reading through some of the new things that are here, but I did take pictures of each of the character classes in this book at level 30, because this has all of the jobs available in Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn and Heavensward. So no red mages, no samurais, no pictomancers, no reapers, none of that good stuff. No gunbreakers, sad day. My bird is really, what is my bird doing? My bird's just flying up there in the sky. Yeah, just about. Okay. But I figured we would go to various inns across Eorzea as we read about Eorzean stuff, and then generally give our thoughts at the end. I don't know if we'll be able to get through like every job or every class. We'll go through the ones that I think are really interesting. If you are out there listening to this, and trust me, if there was ever a time to put this on and like go do dishes, now's the time. Do it now. Hello, Burb. We'll let the idle camera do its thing, so there's something on screen as we read through this, and whenever we can show off some pictures, we'll do so. And there, I'll probably switch to a display capture instead of just the game capture, and we'll actually pull up like some of the pictures. I have them just here in Paint, so that way we can just take a look at it, like zoom in and read them and all of that good jazz. But last time we looked at the starter set, and again, this isn't a review because we haven't played this, it just came in today. I had mentioned that I thought that Final Fantasy XIV starter set would be, it plays very much like a board game. It would be good for just about anybody, especially folks that were nervous about getting into a TTRPG and things like that. And it would be really good at showing off the combat system in Final Fantasy XIV, which it does. And it's good for folks that see the price of Final Fantasy XIV as a big barrier for entry. Because it would be a cheaper alternative, especially if only one of you has to buy it, and then you and your friends can play. A lot of that is still very true, but the only thing I would amend after having looked at this book all day today would be that it is not that great for beginners. This thing is complicated. It's thick. And it might pick up the whole the juicy flowing of pages as we move things around. But there's a good amount of stuff that actually changed, that's added to this, that wasn't in the starter set. The basic set of rules is the same. Yeah, well, the only thing I think that changes gameplay-wise that I can see is in the starter set, you will check for procs, for things like cures to do a little bit extra, like on criticals, or like on a 1920 black mages, Thunderbolt proc goes off and they can cast it for free or does extra damage for free. That is gone. That is not a thing in the core rulebook. So they either changed it or amended it or just realized that wasn't really adding anything or adding undue complication. Another thing that changed was in the starter set, they have levels for 30, 40, and 50. In the core rulebook, it's 30, 40, 50, 55, and 60. And they mention here in this book that there's levels beyond 60, but that's for the advanced player's guide, which isn't in existence yet. So, they're thinking about doing a good amount with this. I don't know if they will, but they're thinking about it. System is still the same. It's a D20 based system for checks and everything that you're doing. Base 5 for all the challenge ratings and DCs to meet anything. Everything else is 2d6. The only time you'll ever really have to roll more than 2d6 is if someone is suffering from a great deal of damage, or if someone crits. And you need to roll like 4d6 or something along those lines. And you'll just re-roll all of that. Beyond that, there's not much that changes from the starter set that I can see. There's tanks, there's healers, there's DPS. Each job has a series of attributes and stats that are set to that job. They are not set to that character. There are rules in here for changing a job, going from one to another, and it's as easy as just making another character sheet, as the character sheets are literally tied to the job and level you're playing. Which means, something that I really like, the character creation or adventure creation screen that they have here. Let me actually turn on the idle camera. There we go. Look at that pillar. One thing I like about the character creation section in this book is that it uses the blue background from character login. So if you've ever sat there for a while when Dawn Trail came out or Endwalker came out, you were in line, you would know what that is, that blue ethereal background when you log in. Look at that little glow-in-the-dark burp. They use that for the character creation. And this is a really robust section, roleplay-wise. Stat-wise, there's not much to talk about. All your stats are determined by your job. So you can create pre-built characters that just kind of exist. There are you can just randomize an adventure based on race. It talks about appearance and glamour and says more or less, this is whatever you want. It could be anything you'd like, because we're out in the streets of Ul'dah now, look at that. Because the glamour system in Final Fantasy XIV is crazy. They're just like, do whatever you'd like. Do whatever you think is neat or suits your fancy. But describe it. Describe what your character might look like. And then it goes into profiles, and this is a huge section, which is great if you are new to TTRPGs. But this is to help you get more involved in the world of Final Fantasy XIV and the world of Eorzea, where this all takes place in. So it's all things like character concept and a backstory. What was that? Creating a character concept and a backstory. Getting like motives and origins. They even have a section here for like character bonds, like who you might know. They even have someone in here. They have Erenvale in here, which are sections of this book that are not covered. But they have our boy Erenvale in here. So like a popular NPC, where you're connected to a popular NPC, whether it's an innkeeper or Hildebrand or Biggs and Wedge or Hancock from the East Aldenar Trading Company. Things like that. The big ones here, though, that actually can make a difference are traits. Your profile will have some kind of a trait attached to it that has some positives, has some negatives. They have some restrictions to it as to when you can use it, but this is like a mechanical thing you get. An example they have is like Indomitable. You slip from the jaws of death more times than you can count. Receive 1 advantage die on checks to endure pain or push your body beyond its natural limits. So when that's applicable, you get that thing. And another thing that has a mechanical benefit here is a title. There's starting titles, but these are things you can reward. So as a game master, they can reward you titles for going through a scenario or a session. This is something you can earn, and then you can pick and choose whichever one you'd like. So they have things here like, what would that be? Athletic. If you pick that title, you increase your max HP by 2. Or Alert, you increase your vigilance by 3. So these are things that give you a mechanical benefit, and then beyond that, it's pages and pages and pages of names for every single race and gender in Final Fantasy XIV, and it is all thematically appropriate. So all the Lalafels are all, like syllables and by sounds and by repeating sounds. The Elzen are all very French sounding. All the Aura are very Japanese coded. It's insane. And then there is a whole, what is this? When does this start? This goes from page 33 of the book all the way to 46, which is just different naming conventions, explaining the different naming conventions, pronouncing the different naming conventions of the different kinds of races throughout Final Fantasy XIV. So it's nuts. And then, let me see here. And then it goes on about all of the different races. This stuff is just pulled straight from, and it literally even says, it's just pulled from the Lodestone. That's on Final Fantasy XIV's core website. It just goes over all the different races, who they are, where they've come from. Then it goes over like all the Beastkin races, it goes through dragons, it goes through other races in the world like the Lupin, Namazu, of course, are in here, the Kojin, Mamulja, all the different kinds of races that might make up other NPCs that the players might encounter. You probably could play as one of these races if you really wanted to. There's nothing in here saying that you can't or shouldn't, but there you go. As far as levels go, this is something that's just predetermined. Like we said before, it's 30, 40, 50, 55, and then 60. And they said changing jobs is as easy to do whenever you want, but they recommend doing it at the beginning or at the end of a game, because it can just take a while to shuffle papers around and figure out what your character is and who they are and all of that stuff. And then basically it goes into like fundamentals of the jobs. It starts actually explaining what all of those jobs are. We'll get into that in a minute, because there's a lot there's a good amount. There's 3 more scenarios in the back of the book as we skip around this book for a little bit. There's 3 more scenarios with a bunch of enemies and things like that. They can lead from one into another, just like the starter set. In fact, they're made for that. The first scenario in the core rulebook is called Scenario 4 because it is based off of continuing from the starter set, but just at different levels. It goes through all of these different jobs. We'll see what they are and like how they work because it is insane and very, very detailed. But there's a couple of extra stuff in here outside of jobs and fighting that I thought was pretty interesting. The first was currency. You don't meticulously count gil in the TTRPG.
Oh, Dados, you want to say hi? You want to say hi to the internet?
Oh no.
Plop.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm waking up my cat. She's taking naps. But you don't meticulously count gil. This is a little bit like Daggerheart, a little bit like Fabula Ultima. There you're counting coins. It's more like Daggerheart, where it's just kind of broad strokes. They just call it fortune. You have a... Well, these thighs are appearing and reappearing very quickly. My God. Phantom thighs. You just have something called fortune. You start with a set amount of fortune based on your level. The higher up in level you are, the more fortune you start with. And it has a bunch of different rules for determining how much you have at the end, carrying it over if you're playing a campaign, all sorts of stuff. It's kind of wacky. But you can use that fortune to actually legitimately buy stuff. There are consumables, there's utility items, and there's meals. Because you can cook or just buy these meals. There's all sorts of things about like shopping tiers and retaining items, player made items, all sorts of stuff. The item list is exactly what you think of. There's potions, high potions, X potions, ethers, antidotes, remedies, all sorts of stuff, and they'll have some kind of effect. They'll also have some kind of action. So like a potion is a secondary item, which means if you're in a fight, you can use a primary and secondary action. So you can like attack the enemy and then use a potion, or vice versa, whatever you want. A lot of those are like targets to self or a single person or one square away. There's fire wards, there's fireworks, there's a Curthian snowball, a picnic set, all sorts of stuff, but they're all just consumables. They have times in which they're used and a variety of different effects. And you can either buy these or you can make them. There is a crafting system in this game. Utility items, there's a small amount of these, but these are everything from like goggles of gathering to spectacles to even an aetheryte pendulum, which answers the question, how does travel work? You have to actually travel. Beyond that, if you have an aetheryte pendulum, you can warp from aetheryte to aetheryte. And then there's meals. And these are used during, like, rest periods, or a lot of these are. And they have... Oh, me? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh.
She is sticking her paw in the water.
Oh.
No. Trying to drink and she's shaking water on her.
Don't do that, sweet girl.
Don't you do it? She's so mad that I woke her up. Oh my gosh. But meals, you'll use usually at, like, rest periods, and they have a wider variety of effects, and it affects the whole party. Everything from like increasing your chances to hit enemies to increasing your defenses, the whole 9 yards. And again, you can make those. They also have something called augmentations, and this is another thing to spend money on or fortune on. The game doesn't have gear, so there is no like finding best in slot or things like that. But the game does have augmentations, and you can spend your fortune in different amounts on these augmentations. So one of these is improved padding, which is As soon as I say that, huh? There's a bunch of cake on screen. Jesus. Improved padding. Costs 2 fortune, and it grants a barrier of 1 HP at the start of the player's turn in combat. So it's just like having extra padding in your armor. It's always giving you a buffer of 1 extra HP. And barriers are like shields in Final Fantasy XIV. Enemies have to go through those before they start dealing damage. Or like a flame cast focus. It grants the ability to cast fire. You deal 2 damage to a target, and if you hit the enemy, you deal an additional 1d6 damage. So it's a way to deal fire damage to something if you really want that to be a thing. There's a small list. I imagine it seems pretty easy to make your own, or to come up with your own if you really want to, or improve them. You can also spend money to improve your check, like add +1 for each fortune you spend. Narratively, I think that's like, oh, you're using items in your pack to help you. Because beyond that, you're pretty much capable of doing whatever you want to do. And there are minions and mounts. If you have a minion out, they do things. They can actually give you buffs and bonuses. And then a mount, you can just say like, oh, I have this mount, or it's granted to you. Then it goes over the whole encounters thing. We did this last time. Everybody has a primary, secondary action. You can move, or you can forego all your movement and focus, and you get 2 secondary actions and a primary action, and that's your whole thing. You want to move a lot. There's a bunch of range. There's ability checks. Whenever you do a thing, it does that thing, and you roll for what this game calls direct hits, and that just means you do more. It's usually like additional damage instead of flat damage. And then there's MP, which is always at 5, regardless of whatever class you are. Regardless of level, it's always 5. And then you regain 2 at the end of when all players take their turns. You get 2 of them back. There's limit breaks, which are controlled by the Game Master. I think we talked about this in the last video that we did, where the Game Master will say, hey, limit breaks can be used. And so you can use your limit breaks. And then there's a lot of enhancements and enfeeblements. There's a bunch of stuff here. Everything from all the status effects, damage over time, enmity, heavy, sleep, slow, prone, stunned, weakness, everything. Then after that, it goes into the adventuring section here, which is just like checks outside of encounters, and that is just you use your stats. Passage of time, resting and sleeping. A lot of that was already discussed in the starter set, which is, like 1 action is 1 check, and 1 check is 1 bell, or an hour worth of time. And you can just kind of keep things rolling along. And encounters, combat encounters, are when things get really small, and you're doing things kind of by the nitty-gritty. Then you just choose the roles you want to have. You have relationships between yourself and everybody else. And then just some things about, like, the Game Master section of this is really, really small and tiny. But what is new here, the first new thing, is downtime between adventures. The starter set didn't have this. It was just pick these characters, here's how you play the game, do these scenarios, and you're off to the races. Here there is something called personal quests in the Final Fantasy XIV TTRPG. You'll do these in between sessions. So you never spend a session doing this downtime. It can be buying something, or like prepping, getting a couple potions and this and that and the other thing, spending fortune. Or you might do this at the end, because you could do them before a session, between session, or after sessions, right? Like when something is done, you can be like, hey, here's when we do this. And there's a bunch of these. There's crafting, because they have, let me see here, because you can also rank up in this, so you can actually get better and better at doing these things. There is actual crafting. This is real simple. You roll a d20 and you get something. So like there's gathering quests, there's fishing as well. Like if you roll a 6 to a 9, a 1 through 5 when you fish, nothing bites. On a 6 to a 19 on a d20 roll, you land a fish and it can be used in place of 1 point of fortune. And a 20 says you land a large-sized fish to be used in places 2 points of fortune, and you earn one of the following titles if you haven't already, which is, I think, Rod of the Luminary, which lets you... What does this let you do? Move the target to an empty square adjacent to you. All markers from which the target is the creator are removed. This item only affects wavekin targets of small size or small. And it's using a bunch of other titles that don't exist in this book. It's not referencing. Figure that out. Oh, I think those are in the starter set. That might be why. That might be why. Let me reset this. Oop, I really gotta reset this. But like, that's what all of these are. There we go. That's what all of these like little crafting or gathering quests are. They're rolling a d20 and seeing what happens to you. There's, you know, alchemists, you'll get a consumable. If you're a culinarian, you can get a meal that's worth, you'll create a meal. The better you roll, the better kind of meal you can get. And if you're a carpenter, blacksmith, armor, goldsmith, leatherworker, weaver, then you get an augmentation worth a certain amount of money. So there's all sorts of stuff here. It's pretty easy and straightforward. But they also have miscellaneous ones if you don't want to craft stuff. There's anything else. You can seek fortune. You gain 1d6 minus 2 fortune. If you roll a 1, you lose 1 fortune. And like, you might be indebted to an NPC. That might not have an effect, but it can. Accompany another adventuring party on a quest. You complete a quest and you get an augmentation. You can participate in large-scale battle against other adventurers, PvP. And you actually get titles. 157. What is this? We're discovering stuff as we go. Oh, okay. You can get mounts that mean you can't be surprised, so you can do PvP a bunch of times. One that I really like here is challenge a character to a friendly game of chance or skill. It says play a game of your choosing against the game master. If you win, your adventurer also wins their match and earns a favor from a character of your choosing. Once during your next adventure, you may change the result of a check made outside of an encounter to 20. Afterwards, the favor is assumed to have been repaid in full. And it's got an asterisk there. It says you may select any game that has clearly defined rules to determine a victor, as knowing whether you or the GM won is crucial to determining the outcome of this personal quest. While any number of tabletop games are suitable, you can always play rock, paper, scissors or roll dice to keep it quick and efficient. It makes a special note to say, like, if you're going to do that and play a game, cooperative games by their nature won't work. You don't have to play your game immediately. You can schedule a time to do it, and like, it literally just says, like, you can literally play a game and incorporate rules from this TTRPG into that as stakes. I love that. I think it's so neat. Or you can take on a challenging task for a guild, which gets you, like, support from an NPC that you can use a certain number of times. Or you can take your ease at a private estate or other suitable lodgings and increase your HP, your max HP by a certain amount for the next adventure. Crazy stuff. Then it has, after all of that, it has the Lands of Eorzea. It says a lot of this is taken from the Encyclopedia Eorzea. And this is just, you know, the areas we all know. It's Ul'dah, it's Gridania, Ishgard, Limsa Lominsa. It's got stuff from Idleshire in here. And then towards the end, it has scenarios and basically what to use, what to look for. That's a cute little minion. Look at that go. How to, like, read NPC stat boxes for enemies, character tokens, encounter maps, all that stuff. And then it goes into the whole thing. Like, areas to read or things to look at. So these are good guides if you want to make your own scenarios. Or you could just do your own. or you could just run them straight out of the book. And again, like they say, like this is for level 30, this is for level 40. At certain levels, you can also just run them from the starter kit as well. Like, there's a bunch. There's a bunch of stuff in here and a bunch of support in here. Along with like extra maps and things like that, example character sheets. There's a bunch of tokens here in the back of the book. Like, look at these tokens. But there's no digital PDF of this. So the only way to get this is to like really like flatten out the pages and throw this onto a copy machine. And just it out and then cut them out. Which is possible for you to do, but again, the starter set, which this is basing a lot of it off of, and these scenarios and all of that, it's basing a lot of that off of the starter set, which had tokens, like actual punch boards and stuff. Which obviously the starter book does not come with, and I got the deluxe edition of this, and it doesn't come with that either. But that more or less is the book. All the new stuff that they added in was a lot of stuff for roleplay. Because the starter set was very much like, pick a character and go. Go do this stuff. You certainly could roleplay, but it was just harder to do. It was less intuitive, so to speak. But there is a lot of... There's a lot of stuff in here. The majority of this book, I would say... Yeah, solid... Ooh, man. I'd say a fourth of this book is just the jobs. It is a huge section. This, in and of itself, is a small book that you could, like, take out and print if you wanted to. I wish they had a PDF of this. I truly do, because if they did, we'd just be looking at that and reading it, but they don't have that. It's just hardcover book. It's very nice. The pages are all very nice. The cover is astoundingly beautiful. It even says players 3 to 5, recommended for 5. Playtime 2+ hours, ages 14+. It even says too, a lot of the scenarios are balanced for 4 players, but they say you can do whatever you want. The starter set recommended a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS because that's a light party. But they say like if you want to do like, you know, convocated mages of all black mages you can, or all white mages. I don't know how that would work, but you can. But you could, right? You could do all that stuff. But they say like balancing is key if you want to have weird stuff like that. And the scheme is balanced for light parties. So like 1 tank, 1 healer, 2 DPS. I imagine if you wanted to have a table for 8, you could just do 2 tanks, 2 healers, 4 DPS, if you really wanted to. Like an actual raid group. And that would just be a raid group. And if you're doing for, you know, anything like 5, like I would say like 6 or 7 and not quite 8, you could also throw in like a chocobo companion. So like there's still something else in terms of balance, like another healer or another tank or something like that, just to help out. But yeah, that more or less is the entirety of the play section of this book. It is, and what you do in it, all the extra bits. There's, oh my god, this freaking dog. There's not, this old puppo was going crazy. There's not a whole lot to it. It's very, very simple. It's very straightforward. It is just play in the world of Eorzea. There's a lot of assumptions that you kind of know some bit or amount of Final Fantasy XIV already, or that your game master does. Which is totally fair because you're in the same areas. So we could walk out to an inn in, like Lenosi or Nocradania, but Wellswood. I think it's the Burning Sands. Is it the Burning Sands? The hell is it called? Thanalan. Go out. We're here. You could go to the, you know, out to some of the desert areas of Thanalan and just be like, what are the PCs named here? And just name your PCs that. Be like, you're here. Here you are. And you're off to the races. Not a whole lot else to it. The big the big ticket item is the classes, how they work, and the encounter system. So let's move somewhere else and change some settings. And I can't do that. Let's go limb elements. Yeah. Hometown, baby. Let's go to that inn and have a seat. I'm gonna change some settings here so that I can actually like pull up some of the good evening chicken. So I can actually pull up what some of these things look like. Alright, let's see. Whoop. Not that setting. There we go. Little camera. Look at that table leg. Alright, let's actually see here if we can. Get our display. Oh, those two are role-playing. Sure. Don't look at them. Don't look at them. Okay, that worked out all right. Let's see here. Let's start with the tanks in some way. Hey, there we are. It's gonna be kind of weird because I don't really know how to. There we go. Something like that. Yeah, my thumb is in a lot of these pictures. I found out that as I was taking pictures of this book at my desk, God, my keyboard is nasty. I was taking pictures of the book. I realized that like there was still a lot of glare everywhere, so that's kind of a bummer. But we'll zoom in and take a look at stuff and how these work and how these look. And all that shindig. So you have your basic stats up over here. And again, like this is based on your class. So your strength, dexterity, vitality, intelligence, and mind are all stats in Final Fantasy XIV. They're used for checks. So if you're playing a paladin and you need to bust down a door, you're going to roll a d20 and add a 4 to it. If you need to walk across a very rickety bridge, you might make a dexterity check. And that is just roll a d20, add nothing. There's no minuses, but you are adding nothing. And it has, for primary and even secondary abilities, all the different levels of this game. So obviously the higher level you go up, the higher they increase. Defense and magic defense for secondary, those are the numbers to hit. So to hit a paladin with a physical attack, I, the game master, would need to roll a 16. Modifiers and all on a d20. To hit them with a spell, it's a 13. Vigilance is the general score that you would need to like perceive stuff around your area. There's no check for that. So if you walk into a room and you're like, what's here? As a game master, I might say like, at Vigilance 10, you see this. At Vigilance 12, you see this. And at Vigilance like 14, you see this instead. Right, and so players can obviously see what it is that they see or all that. Speed is how many squares you can move on a battle map. You need a battle map for this game. I don't see this working in any other way. And then max HP is how much max HP you have. They've got like all this information, which is neat and all that. But they also have effects down here at the bottom. Some of these are traits. Some of these are things you can take a peek at, like one that I managed to get in the photo. Level 30 and higher, you get combo. A lot of classes have this. If something says combo, you can immediately use the action that it says that you can use. But at level 40, you get something called Oath Mastery. Certain effects grant you conviction. You can have up to 4 at any given time, and at the start of your turn, you gain 1. And there might be other ways to gain it. But then, here are all of our, up at the top it says, the level that you got, the limit break and what that does, which is going to be unique for your class. I don't think that changes. The numbers might change as you go from 30, 40, 50, 55, and 60. And then primary, secondary abilities, and instant abilities. You get one primary, one secondary. If you don't move and you focus, you get one primary and two secondary. And then instance abilities have triggers. Some have limitations to them, but when the trigger occurs, you can use that instant ability. But you can only use one per, I think, like per attack or per round of combat. You can only use one. It just depends on what it is, I think. I think you can use one. I'm not sure. I think you can use as many as you want, but only one like per triggering action. So Paladin has the Paladin combo Fast Blade and Riot Blade. It's condensed that in one ability. The target is a single target, one square away. Check is strength, and they've done the math for you. D20 plus 4. Because again, your stats aren't changing. It's set by your class. And then the CR is the challenge rating, and that is just the target's defense value. The base effect, without rolling any die, is you deal 2 damage and inflict enmity. And enmity is this game's version. It's a debuff. If it's inflicted on an enemy, if they attack anybody else, they get negatives to their attack rolls. So they're going to want to hit you. And then that combo's in a range of Halone. Or Halone. Which means you can do that immediately afterwards. Base effect for that one, deal 2 damage and inflict enmity. And direct hits are just if you meet or beat the target's defense value. So there, it's you deal an additional d6 damage for both. So if both of those go off, if you hit on both of those, you're dealing 2d6 plus 4 damage to an enemy. With just like one use of primary actions. Total Eclipse is all enemies within a 5x5 range of you, so everybody directly next to you. You deal 2 damage to all of them, and that's if you hit. Otherwise, you just inflict enmity on them all. Shield Bash, you deal 3 damage, inflict enmity. It stuns them until their next turn, and if you hit them, you deal some extra damage. Shield Lob is doing that at a distance. And then secondary abilities is Rampart, which just reduces any damage you take until the start of your next turn. But you can only do that once per phase. Phases are more or less an entire encounter. But if an encounter has multiple phases, like, oh, you're attacked by a swarm of bandits, the second phase could be reinforcements show up and the bandit captain. Which means that you can use Rampart once in each of those phases in that whole encounter. But if it's just one fight, then it's just that fight. Low Blow stuns an enemy until the end of this turn. Or stuns the target until the end of this turn. Spirits Within deals 2 damage and inflicts enemy targets. Just a lot of, look at me! That's the whole thing. Ooh, excuse me. Has some instant abilities, though. Sturdy Shield, which is after an ability check for an ability that targets you. You just increase your defense by a d6. So from 1 to 6, you increase your defense and use this new value to determine if the ability scores a direct hit. But you can only do that once per round, but you could do that every round. All these other ones have these small little boxes next to them because their limitation is once per phase. And so it's just reminding you that you can only use it once per phase. But Sturdy Shield you can use as many damn times as you like. It's nice. Reprisal reduces damage from everybody all around you. Fight or flight, you get an advantage die on your next ability check this turn. Which here is just rolling 2d20 and you take whichever one you want. Obviously, you'd probably want the higher one. So a lot of things from the game that already exist, Paladins already get. And that's kind of Paladins at a glance. It's real hard to read out there. We'll keep zooming in as we go through these. And then, let me see here. Let's close that out. Where are we? There's a man. Warrior we already looked at in the book. Again, nothing really changed from Warrior. You can see there that traits and other effects. They get like enmity increases. There's a combo. But now they have something called the Beast Within. They'll get Wrath, and this is something they can spend on abilities. A lot of their powers are very much like the Paladins. It's just inflicting enmity, dealing extra damage. They get Berserk, which means they can do additional damage every turn. And then a lot of their instant abilities are a lot of the tank cooldowns. So Reprisal, Interject, but they have their own Thrill of Battle, which is they get a barrier, and that can exceed their max HP. All sorts of stuff. But Warriors very much the same way. And we're just kind of looking at, like, changes in them. I don't want to showcase, like, every single bit, if I possibly can. But, yeah, as much as we can. And then... I like it. This is probably my favorite tank class. This one's a little askew. They have something called Dark Side, which you can see right there. Well, under the effect of Dark Side, they can spend 2 MP when they score a direct hit, with a single target ability to treat any roll of 1, 2, or 3 as a 0, or a 4, 5, a 6 as if it were a 10 when determining damage. And Dark Side is removed at the end of your next turn if the effect is not renewed. This is this game's first introduction to reading your tooltips. Because the question comes, how the hell do you get Dark Side? Where does that come from? How do you get it? And again, everybody has MP, and everybody gets MP back. And the way this reads, you may spend it when you score a direct hit on an enemy. I would go either way. I would say, yeah, for that, you can either roll your dice and then use Dark Side, or you make your hit and then determine if you want to do it, then roll your damage die. That's kind of poopy, though. I really would just do it, like, once they figure out their hit. They have a different limit break, but same kind of thing. Super powerful and awesome. Dark Knight combo. Combos in the Soul Eater. Same thing. It's single target, D20 plus 4, because that's their strength value. Over there again, they're adding 4 to it. It deals 2 damage. For this one, though, it actually deals 2 damage, inflicts enmity on the target, restores 1 MP. So that's not bad. And then Soul Eater restores 2 HP. So just like the Dark Knight combo, you're gaining MP and gaining extra HP back and all that stuff. Unleash is their AoE, Unmend is their at-range enmity. But then we see here secondary abilities, Rampart, Low Blow, Flood of Darkness. Deals 2 damage to all targets and grants Dark Side. So that's how you get it. So anything that's like a keyword almost is always in bold in the book. So whenever you're looking at like character abilities, like, Dark Side, where do I get it? Then you're looking for anything in bold here that says Dark Side. And then trying to work your way backwards on how to get it. So generally, for the first class here, we have a kind of playstyle. Paladins and Warriors are just about like reducing damage by any means necessary. Paladins can use their shields to increase their defense. Warriors can increase their health, and they have a lot more health. And they can just get more of it. Here, Dark Knights, just like in the game, are playing with their MP. So they've got to spend 2 MP as a secondary ability to deal 2 damage to a 3x3 area around them, or adjacent to this character. So they pick a direction, and then a 3x3 square area, they'll deal damage to everything there. That gives them 2 damage, just flat out. Not a whole lot, but it gets them Dark Side. Then they start their combo. So then they'll roll their dice, they'll roll their damage dice, and then they can say, yeah, I want to use it. Because their damage is the same. It just deals an additional 1d6, deals an additional 1d6. So it can either be a d6 plus 2 damage, or, it's like, so 1 through 6 plus 2. That's what? That's at least 3 to 8 damage. Or they can say, if they rolled a 4, 5, or 6, I'm going to use that Dark Side. And now their damage range is 11 to 13. Just because they used it. But again, once it's gone, It's removed at the end of your next turn if the effect is not renewed. So they have to keep using Flood of Darkness and then Soul Eater to keep dealing damage. If they don't do that and they use other secondary abilities, or if they just stay still, they could use Flood of Darkness and Rampart and something else. But every cost of Darkside uses 2 MP, and they're only getting 2 back. So it is a balancing act of how well they roll and how much MP they have left. And then same thing here, instant abilities. These are the same ones that we saw: Provoke, Interject, Reprisal. They all kind of work the same way. But we start to see the uniqueness of some of these classes and how they work. What we got next? Where are we? Where are we? I actually have the book out here. Because then I think after that, yeah, well, then we go into White Mage. This was also in the core rulebook as well. Again, a lot of the procs, like roll a d20 on a 19 or 20, you get these abilities. A lot of that stuff is gone. They do have, though, Secrets of the Lily at level 55. They get lilies. And that's not detailed here because it's just level 30. But once you hit level 55, skills and powers and abilities that reference lilies start to come up. So they've got Stone 2, costs an MP, deals damage at a distance, and it targets magic defense. A lot of their stuff targets magic defense. Repose inflicts sleep, which is debuff, which I think, let me see, what does sleep do now? It's going to be, here we go. Sleeping characters incur a -3 penalty on all checks. Sleep is removed when they take damage. Characters may use a primary action to wake a sleeping character in an adjacent square. Being roused in this fashion removes sleep. So you absolutely, if you wanted to, just put a target to sleep, because they incur a -3 penalty on all checks. I think that's also defense. But I'm not, I don't believe so. The sleep might be just as useless here as it is in the video game. I'm not sure. Not sure how I would read that. But it's good that we have this page open, because they also have Raise. Requires 1 knocked out character, costs 3 MP, which is huge, and has special rules on a D20, which doesn't say anything here for special rules. Oh, it's just a check, special D20. I'm glad they're excited. So it removes knocked out. We're surrounded by RPers, are we? Is that all we are? No? Okay, well, we are in Limsa. Anyway. So you have to be knocked out, which means when you're knocked out, you are unconscious, you're prone and stunned, you can't recover HP or MP. It doesn't wear off at the end of a phase like other status effects do. It has to be... you have to figure that out. This Raise removes that, restores 1d6 plus 3 HP, so not a whole lot. Grants Transcendent, and afflicts them with weakness. Transcendent is an enhancement, which says they're immune to damage and enfeeblements inflicted by enemies' abilities, and it's removed at the start of the character's turn or when the character uses an ability. So these characters can choose to go, I guess, if they're knocked out, and a round starts and they're already knocked out, they can just say, I go first, and do nothing. And then the White Mage can go raise them. They don't take any damage until the start of the next turn. But weakness, if you have this, you suffer a -2 penalty to all checks. And weakness does not wear off at the end of a phase, and can only be removed by completing a rest, or by effects that specifically showcase it. But it says a check for special, D20 and critical. So it's probably... Let me see. Let me see if the book says anything about this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm a liar. Let's see here, 162, 63. The ability is a critical. Ability checks that result in a critical where you score a direct hit.
Boop, bap, boop, ba, dabba, boop, da.
Some abilities have special listed in their checker. In that case, the result of an ability check or d20 roll may be referenced when resolving the ability's effects.
But there is no extra effect.
Weird! We found one! We found one weird one. Anyway, secondary abilities, just moving right along, is Cure, an arrow, which is a damage over time effect. Suna, you just remove a single enfeeblement, which you could probably do 2 weakness, I imagine. Lucid Dreaming, you get more MP back. Presence of Mind, you can use a magic ability. And instant abilities is Swiftcast. You can use that when any character ends their turn. You can immediately use an ability. So you have 2 ways of doing that. That's kind of weird. So we found one oddity. I'll have to figure that out eventually as we go through all this. Oh, and there's my favorite class. It's the Scholar. So Scholar is one of the 2 classes that have pets. Summoners are the other ones. And pets, in this game it says, you're immune to all effects. Pets are immune to effects unless it's caused by a trait or ability, and can enter and end its movement in occupied squares. Other characters may also move through or end their turn in the same square as your pet. So long as your pet remains on the encounter mat, you benefit from the effects of this trait. During encounters, pets take their turn immediately before you. On its turn, a pet can perform a standard movement to move up to its speed and use one of its abilities. Can't perform any other actions. So for... Oh, I didn't take a picture of this, I don't think. But there's a whole page on pets and like what they are, because summoners also use them. So for Scholars, it's Eos. Of course it is. She can move 5 squares, and she can either cast Embrace on a single target, which just restores 2 HP, no check, or Whispering Dawn, which they can use once per phase, once per encounter or phase of an encounter. Targets all allies within a 5x5 area from the pet, and it grants Revivify, which is like a damage over time, but it's healing. So you heal 2 points of health at the end of every single character phase. Nice. So it's just, like Scholar, it's just extra free healing. Doesn't cost anything. So it's great to just put that nearby the tank and just let that do its work. Then their abilities are Ruin. It's a casting spell. It's like a d6 plus 2 if it hits. Otherwise, it's just 2. They can put Sleep. Their Repose, though, is that different from the White Mage's Repose? Oh, no. It's the same thing. Removes all markers generated by the target. So that might be one way to do it. If someone is putting markers on a target, we'll just cast them to sleep and hope to God you hit. Resurrection, same thing. The check is a d20, and it's a critical. So yeah, I imagine that's... See here, can I? No, because I can't. Gross. I just put that in here. Let me see if that'll work. No, because it's just sending messages out. Oh, shit. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye. Yeah, I can feel it. If at any time you want to turn it off, turn it off. Okay. What do we got here? So the single cast, there's Ruin, Repose, Resurrection. They also have Adloquium, which restores a D6 plus 3 HP and grants a barrier equaling the amount of HP. And God, that's so nice, especially for a game like this. Barriers are, like we said before, enemies have to go through that before they actually start hurting HP. So that is effectively, that doubles your result. So that can heal up to 18 HP, effectively. Because enemies are going to have to get through that barrier before hurting them. And it costs the same as a singular heal spell. Then there's Bio 2, which does a point of damage and inflicts a dot. There's Asunia. You also have Heal, because you're a pet class, which is just the entire encounter map. It targets your pet, and it just says move your pet to 1 square occupied by this character. Which I think is just 1 space nearby you. It just says, put just right here, and your pet goes, and just comes right back to you. Which is great if you like move in and you want to do some kind of big thing. And then same thing, they have Swiftcast. They get a hell of a lot more as they go on. We'll look at some, because I think I have one or two, at level 60. Just to see what it's like at the end, at the highest level we can get to. Then we have, look at this wagon. Then we have Astrologian. This is another healer. They do, I mean, place your bets. If anybody was out there that had been trying to make up classes for the official release of this book, figure out if you were close enough. Because this just is play Arcana. This is the only thing they have, and the only thing they're going to get, but they get it right at the beginning. At the start of your turn, you grant a single ally of your choosing within 10 squares of you Major Arcana and a barrier of 1 HP. And then after attaining level 40, that increases to 2. So just a small little barrier, just a little thing to help them out. But what that is when a character is under the effect of Major Arcana, they can reroll a single die of their choosing when determining the amount of damage dealt by an ability. Any die rerolled in this way cannot be rerolled again, and the result must be used. And then Major Arcana is removed. And that is by an ability. They may reroll a single die of their choosing when determining the amount of damage dealt by an ability from anybody. So I imagine if it's of their choosing, again, so like they can choose it if they want to. I imagine the wording of this is super weird. The wording of a lot of abilities in this is kind of weird if it's not super technical. I imagine this would be them doing it. Like something they're doing, because that's how it is in the game. They wouldn't be able to reroll an enemy's ability, but the whole thing. So same thing, they have Repose, they have Ascend, which are their versions of putting a target to sleep and resurrecting somebody. They have Malefic, which is just single target damage. They have Helios and Benefic, which are immediately really powerful. Benefic 2 just costs 2, and it's 2d6 plus 4. So that's at least 6 HP healed to a single target. And then Helios is just half of that value, 1d6 plus 2. But it's a 5v5 area centered around... It says this character... Okay, so yeah, it just comes out from the healer. Because otherwise it would be like a 5... The range would be, you know, like 10 squares away, and it would be a 5x5 area somewhere else. Secondary abilities, they just have regular Benefic, which is just a d6 of HP. So if you just need to... Whoops, hold on here. There we go. So if you just don't need to heal a whole hell of a lot, you can just do Benefic and be good. They got their dot. They also have light speed. They can use it twice per phase, and it's just immediately use one of your magic abilities. I don't know why they would need to do that. Oh, because you'd probably want to do... Okay, I see. because that's a secondary ability. So on your turn, you would get a primary and secondary. So you'd want to use that if you wanted to use a second primary ability, would be the point to that. And then they've got, you know, Swift Cast, but they also have Essential Dignity. This restores a d6 HP to the target. If the target's HP is less than or equal to half of their max, it restores 2d6 plus 2 instead. And it's just when any character ends their turn. And so it doesn't have to be that character that you're healing. When they end their turn, whenever anybody ends their turn, you can just do this. So it's it can be a really powerful heal again. Again, the check is special. It's a d20 and a critical. Oh, that's why. I understand now. I understand. Because when you're doing a d12, when you're making a check and you crit, it just doubles all the dice. So for all of our resurrections, it's a d20 special or a d20 critical because you're checking to see if you double the die you're healing. So for theirs, it's a d6 plus 2. If you crit, it's 2d6 plus 2. So for this one as well, Essential Dignity, it could be 2d6 on a crit, or if they're at half their HP or lower, it could be 4d6 plus 2 instead. And you're rolling just to see if you crit. Otherwise, you're going to do whatever it says on the tin. I got you. I get it now. I get it. Oh boy, now we're getting into the weeds. Because that's tanks and healers, so now we're on to DPS. And our first one is a doozy. I was trying to understand this today. Ignore my giant thumb. But I was trying to understand this today. Because we got a peek of it with the Dark Knight. Now we're full throttle into actual rotations. And like actually getting into a rotation. So at level 30, monks have 3 features. Or three traits. Martial forms. Certain effects grant you Oppo form, Raptor form, or Coral form. While under the effects of a form, you receive 1 advantage die on your ability checks for physical abilities. Which is awesome. You just get advantage on all your attacks. I didn't even read that line. I was scanning through it. If an effect grants you a new form, your current form is removed and the new form immediately takes effect. Forms are removed at the end of your next turn. So effectively, if you're in a form and you end a turn, your next turn, you don't use any form abilities, they're all gone. You also get deep meditation. Certain effects grant you a chakra. You can have up to 3 at any given time. At the start of an encounter, gain 3. And then after attaining level 40, you gain a chakra each time your abilities score critical. Then you also have Bestial Fury. Certain effects grant you Raptor's Fury and Coral's Fury. You can have up to 1 stack of Raptor's Fury and 2 stacks of Coral's Fury at any given time. Whenever you resolve the effects of an ability that enables this trait, Bestial Fury, you may spend 1 stack of the corresponding Beast's Fury to deal an additional 1d6 damage and move up to 2 squares. And then after attaining level 50, certain effects grant you Oppo's Fury. And then after attaining level 60, the additional damage is increased to 2d6. Increases to 2d6. So that is a lot. But if you're a player of Final Fantasy XIV, that means that as a monk, you're doing monk shit. Exactly like you do in Final Fantasy XIV. You start out with Oppo form, then go into Raptor form, then Coral form. Coral form rotates back around to Oppo form, and you do the same thing again and again and again. And there's lots of ways to change what attacks you're doing. So looking over here at all of our attacks, our first one, because again, we only get 1 primary ability per turn. So this is necessary. Monk combo. Base effect. You may perform up to 3 additional primary actions this turn. The primary actions granted by this effect can only be used for physical primary abilities. And wouldn't you know it, all of our abilities are primary and physical. So that works out entirely well. So we'd start off this rotation. We'd start this off with Boot Shine. Hit 1 enemy, deals 2 damage, and grants Raptor form. And if this ability is used while under the effect of Oppo form and results in a direct hit, it automatically scores a crit. We're already checking because of martial forms. We're already getting advantage. The first attack of every fight, we don't get it. But then it grants us raptor form. So then, with advantage, we're using our Twin Snakes ability. We can only use it when under the effect of raptor form. It deals 2 damage to the target, and again grants us curl form and 1 stack of Raptor's Fury. Great. And we're rolling with advantage. And you can see here a direct hit just deals an additional 2 damage. So a crit here won't really matter too terribly much. We're really just checking for direct hits, because crits don't enhance flat numbers. Or double flat numbers. They just double dice that are being rolled. So you're just checking for additional hits. It probably is. So we're also doing another 2 points of damage. Then we move into Demolish, which is the exact same thing of Twin Snakes, but under Curl form. We deal 2 damage to the target, we grant the Opa Opa form, and 2 stacks of Curl's Fury. Then, after that, we move back into Bootshine. On our next round of combat, round 2, we take our turn. We start with Bootshine again. Now we're rolling Bootshine with advantage. We roll 2d20. If we score a direct hit, it's automatically a crit. We're very likely to score a direct hit. So this is most likely going to deal 2d6 plus 2 damage, just out the gate. Then, once we're there, we don't go to Twin Snakes anymore. We go to True Strike. Because then we deal 2 damage to the target, grants Curl form, and enables Bestial Fury Raptor. Again, because of Bestial Fury, when you resolve the effects of an ability that enables Bestial Fury, you can spend a stack of the corresponding beast's fury to deal an additional 1d6 damage. So we do this. We're very likely to get a direct hit. We're very likely to get a crit because we're still rolling with advantage. And so we spend that raptor point. So we deal 2d6 plus 2 damage. If it's a crit, it suddenly becomes 46 plus 2 damage. And it's still our turn. And we move into Snap Punch, where we do the same thing. Deal 2 damage, grants Opa Opa form, and enables Bestial Fury Curl. We do the same exact thing, because it's the same exact move. And we spend Fury, granting us more dice. We're very likely to get a crit. We spend that we spend that Fury, we get more die, we go back to Bootshine, and then back to Twin Snakes, get that Raptor's Fury, back to Demolish, get that Curl's Fury. And like Monk stuff, we have Armor the Destroyer and Rockbreaker, which is an AoE to all of that stuff. It doesn't grant us the Bestial Fury ability, but if we need to deal damage to a lot of enemies all at once, we can start with Armor the Destroyer or end with Rockbreaker. Or both, and just deal a lot of damage to a lot of things. This is a rotation in a TTRPG. And it works, because again, like last time, you could see that your turn is very much you move, you attack, you do some abilities, you do some stuff. Here, it's just 3 attacks. Every round, you're just beating the crap out of enemies. A monk is very likely to deal somewhere around 15 to 20 points of damage every fight they're in. It's stupid. And you can take a peek too. Final Heaven is the limit break. The base effect, perform a primary action. What's a primary action? Your monk combo. So you can just do all that again. And then secondary abilities, they got Leg Sweep to stun a target, Bloodbath to get Drain. Meditation grants them a chakra. And Steel Peak is a secondary ability that costs 3 chakra to use to just deal 4 damage to a target. Just immediately punch, deal 4 damage. And then Second Wind is a self-heal that they get once per phase of a fight, and Feint is the ability to reduce damage that they're being dealt. It's their own form of mitigation. So monks are nuts, man. But that's part of the fun of wanting to play a monk, is literally to go in and be like, I have a very specific rotation, and I want to do it. And then at later levels, they just get more and more and more of these techniques and abilities. They change and move. All sorts of stuff. Neat. What next? Dragoon was in the starter set. We'll go through that one real quick, but it doesn't really change much. It was in the starter set, and not much changes here. They have Power Surge, When under the effects of Power Surge, their abilities deal an additional 2 damage. And then combo as well, like Paladins. Whoops. That's not what I want. So while a monk is making 3 separate attacks, they're kind of doing the same thing. They can go True Thrust, Dragoon combo, or they just make 2. Because True Thrust says the combos into Dragoon combo or Disembowel. Disembowel grants Power Surge, which, again, their abilities deal an additional 2 damage. That stays, so you only have to do that once in a fight, and then you're just dealing extra damage. I think in the starter set, you had to go back and forth. Oh, actually, I believe you do. I believe you do. Because enhancements, it is an enhancement, and those leave at the end of every phase of combat. Boop, boop, boop. Enhancements wear off in the manner specified in their effect description after a period of time or at the end of a phase. Okay. It's at the end of a phase, so it just stays there. That just stays. So if there's a phase in a fight, and like, again, you defeated the first round of bandits, but now here comes some more along with the captain, you'd have to disembowel again in order to get that Power Surge benefit again. Piercing Talon is a damage thing away, and Jump is one that they can do once per phase, which is just this big damaging ability. So you probably want to do True Thrust and Disembowel to get Power Surge, and then next turn or whenever the boss shows up, or if you get advantage from somebody or something somewhere, then do Jump. And yeah, just even already it's 2d6 plus 3. That's if you miss. If you hit, it's 46 plus 3. And if you crit, that's 8d6 plus 3. Because again, you're just doubling all the die. And then you get Life Surge, which is their drain ability, Leg Sweep, Bloodbath, which is their drain as well. So they get 2. They get 2 drain abilities, and Lance Charge, which is kind of like Power Surge additionally. So you can use this along with Power Surge to deal an additional 4 every turn. That's awesome. And again, they get more stuff. They get like all the Wheeling Thrusts and all that. Fang and Claw, Wheeling Thrust. They get that stuff around level 60 as well. Oh boy, this one. Let's take a look at this guy. And I'm just going through them as they are ordered in the book. Ninja. I have never played Ninja. That is literally at a 0 for me in Final Fantasy XIV. I have never leveled Rogue. I've never played Ninja. It has always seemed really complicated. Here, I might play Ninja. Maybe. If I was ever a player, I'd be like, yeah, let me play a Ninja. Sure. Why not? Sign Weaver. Certain effects grant you Mudra. You can have up to 1 at any given time. All of them are removed when you perform an action other than Ritual Weave or attaining level, or after attaining level 50, Kasatsu. After attaining level 40, the number of Mudra you have increases to 2 and to 3 at level 50. Hide. At the start of an encounter, you get hidden unless you were caught by surprise. Ooh. What is that? That is a status effect, if I ever heard one, baby.
Well, is it?
Oh no, it's here. It's an enhancement right here. While under the effects of Hidden, you receive 1 advantage die on your ability checks. Hidden is removed when you take or deal damage or perform a primary or secondary ability. You can still be targeted by abilities while under the effects of Hidden. And then also there's Ninjutsu cooldown. It's an enhancement and cannot be removed by effects that remove enfeeblements. Ninjutsu cooldown is removed at the end of your next turn. I think we're going to see what that is here. So they got a primary ability, which is just a combo. Leads right from one to another. 2d6 plus 2 damage, 2d6 plus 2 damage. Pretty standard. It's a d20 plus 5, though, which is not bad. They got a throwing dagger, which is there at range, and then Mudra, or Ninjutsu. I'm sorry. The cost is all Mudra. Condition, 1 or more Mudra and not under the effect of Ninjutsu cooldown. The base effect is immediately use one of your ninjutsu abilities marked with an N icon, and they're also down here. Some ninjutsu abilities can only be used if you spend one or more. Grants ninjutsu cooldown after resolving the ninjutsu ability's effects. Okay, so there, you'll use ninjutsu. Turn 2, you can't use ninjutsu. Turn 3, you can use ninjutsu again, because ninjutsu cooldown is gone at the end of your next turn. And the one we have is one or more moods are spent, deals 10 damage to a target, just flat out. They got leg sweep and bloodbath. They've got mug, increases the damage the target takes from abilities by 1 until the start of your next turn. And then ritual weave as a base effect grants a mudra. Okay, so again, you're starting to see her. Oh, here we go. Here's some instant abilities. Shade shift increases your defense and magic defense by a d6. That's nice. Once per phase is just increasing your defense and magic defense, so that's even better than the paladin one. And then trick attack, under the effect of hidden, deals 2d6 damage to the target and grants 1 advantage die on your next ability check. That's pretty good. So you would really want to... So nothing here grants hidden. You're just hidden at the start of your turn. And you're hidden until you deal damage or do something. So that is really at the start of a fight, is really what you're doing trick attack for. There's nothing else here that I can see that's going to grant the hidden condition. No, not a thing. Okay, so yeah, start of combat, go up to something, do trick attack, get an advantage die on the next ability check. Then you'd probably go into, I imagine... Ooh. Yeah, you'd probably do trick attack, and then probably ritual weave, or the base effect, say for the base effect of that, and then just do a ninja combo. Because that advantage die, grant 1 advantage die that you get, again, that's not going to help us with the Fuma Shuriken, because that's only increasing the number of die you roll, not flat damage. So that would not be helpful on the next ability check. But ninjutsu is not an ability check. You just use that, deal 10 damage, and then you can move into your ninja combo. So you could even use this at the beginning. Turn 1, use trick attack, then do ritual weave, then do your Fuma Shuriken. You're on ninjutsu cooldown. Turn 2, just go into your ninja combo, and you still have that advantage. And you just get right into it. So there you go. That's not bad. I think this gets really complicated. Let me just take a peek. Oh, yeah. You get a bunch of different ninjutsu. Oh, yeah. By level 60, you have 7 different ninjutsu that you can perform. Bonkers. And extra stacks of stuff, and oh my goodness. It's crazy! Now they released, the next one we're going to look at is Bard. They released Bard. They said, hey, we're going to, here's what Bard's going to look like from the book. I didn't look at it, so I don't know if there's any changes from this to their release of it on their website. But we have Arrow Flurry. On your turn, after resolving the effects of an ability that enables this trait, you may use an additional Flurry ability. You may choose a new target, and Arrow Flurry can only be used once per turn. Bard Song. At the start of your turn, you may use one of your song abilities, marked with the song icon, as a free action. Song effects are removed at the start of your next turn, at the end of a phase, or when you are knocked down. And then Hawk's Eye. Well, none of the effects of Hawk's Eye, you may use Straight Shot or Wide Volley and ignore the penalty incurred on ability checks made while blinded. Ooh. Hawk's Eye is removed after using Straight Shot or Wide Volley. Okay. And then these are abilities over here. So Heavy Shot, that's your one and done. Deals 2 damage and enables Arrow Flurry. Oh, okay, so there are still procs. It's just written in there. If the die rolled for this ability check lands on a 15 or higher, the following proc effect triggers. Heavier Shot grants Hawk's Eye. And then you could use straight shot or wide volley. So it's either you're doing probably like 2 of these, probably 2 of those per turn, or like a dot, because that also enables arrow flurry, and then heavy shot. And Hawk's Eye stays until you use it. Yeah, it's removed after using straight shot or wide volley. And wide volley is just a better version, but for the AoE version. Quick knock is also an AoE versus 3x3 area adjacent to this character, so still nearby, but you're affecting a big area. Deal 3 damage to all targets. If it's 15 or higher, you get Hawk's Eye. Yeah, that's just 2 damage. Wide volley and straight shot are just 5 damage. Noise. Noise. And then Raging Strikes is your primary abilities, deal an additional 2 damage. And you can use that twice per phase. They've got Leg Graze. This is new. Second win they have before. Leg Graze is immediately after they make a check. Reduce the total of the ability check by a d6. That's not bad. It's kind of like, what is it? Silvery Barbs? Or Cutting Words from D&D? I forget which one. Foot Graze. Bind the target immediately before an enemy moves. So you can stay put. Repelling Shot. Move up to 3 squares. You cannot end this movement in a square that's closer to the target than where you began. Okay, so you might have to move like a little diagonally, but sure. Bloodletter just deals 4 damage. Limitation is twice per phase. Head Graze. When an enemy within 10 squares of this character uses an invoked ability, or is using invoked, this interrupts the invoked ability, negating it completely. That's awesome. So a lot of invoked abilities are like spells or things that generate markers. You can just be like, no. No, don't do it. And then there's songs. Song abilities can only be used after resolving Bard's Song, which is at the start of your turn. So start of your turn, you got Minstrel's Refrain, grants the song effect of a single song ability of your choosing that you have already used in this phase. Okay. And then Mage's Ballad. The base effect. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I see. I'm reading this. Okay. So the Mage's Ballad, the base effect, restores one use of Bloodletter and grants the following song effect. Mage's Ballad. All allies may each re-roll a single die when determining the amount of damage dealt by an ability. That's really good. And the limitation is once per phase. That means the base effect is only limited to once per phase. But you can use Minstrel's Refrain to just play Mage's Ballad and just get that effect every turn if you want to. That is awesome. That is really, really good. Use that with a Dark Knight when they're using Dark Side to deal either 0 or 10 damage, and oh my god. Incredible. Or a big gamble. But still, like, that's amazing. Just, I can reroll a single die. And you could do that, like, just every turn. Just every turn, buff your allies. Boom, there you go. That's great. I love bards. Bards are so nice. That's why I like playing bards. Look at that butt. Ooh, and speaking of range damage, it's the Machinist. The Machinist. This I don't know too much about. In-game and in here. Mechanized Sharpshooter. You may use any number of instant abilities on your turn. Oh, that's awesome. Thermal Trap. Certain effects grant you heat. You can have up to 4 heat at any given time. Overheated. When under the effects of Overheated, use the lower the target's defense or magic damage as the CR for your ability checks. Overheated is removed at the start of your next turn. Okay. Okay, so let's see how that works. So we got our primary abilities here. Machinist combo deals 4 damage, and then you can go into clean shot. Both of these generate 1 heat. And this thermal trap says we can have up to 4 at any given time. Okay, I'm starting to see it just already. That regular thing deals an extra d6 or just flat damage. So flat 8 damage. Just from misses? Not bad. Really not bad. Hot Shot deals 7 damage to a target, or an additional 2d6, and that's once per phase. So that's just a big, big hit. And then Spread Shot is the AoE version of their combo. Just like a regular hit, but to a bunch of different enemies. Secondary abilities. Reassemble. The next ability you use this turn automatically scores a critical unless it is interrupted or otherwise negated. Oh, yep. Reassemble, Hot Shot. There you go. Reassemble Hot Shot, that's 46 plus 7. Oh my god. What is the average of that? 46. Average of... That's 7. 14. 14, 7... That's 21. An average of 21 damage. Just from boop, boop. Like, you don't even roll. It's just an automatic crit. It's just like, yeah, reassemble Hot Shot, boom. Average of 21 damage. Let me just roll 46, please. Oh, that's nice. It's nice, I like it. And then Hypercharge. Here's our heat. Grants overheated until the start of your next turn. So yeah, the first turn, you generate some heat. And then second turn, probably generate some more, like you use Hypercharge and then generate heat. And then next turn, use Hypercharge, generate more heat. And overheated, again, just says you use the lower the target's numbers. Magic defense is usually lower for most enemies, but you just use the lower number. That's awesome. And then we can use as many instant abilities as we want. We're still limited, but we can use as many as we want. So we've got Leg Graze, which reduces an ability check by a d6. We got Second Wind, Foot Graze, which binds a target, Head Graze, which completely stops an invoked ability, and Gauss Round, which just deals 5 damage to a target. Noise. Noise. Ooh. Noise, noise, noise. I like that. I really like that. That's great. Oh my god. And maybe... No, that depends. No, I don't think that works like that. And then we move on to the casters. So now we're talking Black Mage. And I think we're nearly done, because there's only two casters to talk about here. These guys is tricky. Pardon my giant stupid thumb. So, consecutive invocation. So normally, again, one primary ability, one secondary ability. If you stay still and focus, 2 secondary abilities, and one primary ability. Consecutive invocation changes all that entirely. On your turn, after resolving the effects of an ability that enabled this trait, you may forego all standard movement until the end of your next turn to use an additional invoked primary ability. You may choose a new target when using this additional ability. Consecutive invocation can only be used once per turn and does not prevent you from using focus to perform an additional secondary action. So this is a big bet. This is a huge bet. Because normally Black Mages don't want to move anyways. Consecutive invocation says, I'm not going to move. It's like, I'm not going to move until my second turn is done, until the start of my third turn, effectively. If you cast something with consecutive, and what gives consecutive invocation? Let's see. Nothing here. These are all primary... Oh, no. It's an invoked primary ability. Or no? Invoke this ability. Nothing does, though. Oh, no. I see it now. Blizzard and Fire. Oh, my God. Okay. So yeah, casting Fire enables it. So, start of your turn, you're like, I'm going to sit still. I'm good where I am. I'm going to, cast like Thunder 2 to inflict a dot. say to inflict the dot on a bunch of targets over there. I'm going to scathe, and I'm also going to cast fire. And I'm not going to move this turn and my next turn to cast fire again. I don't know why you would do that. That's so much mana, you're just gone. Because again, you only get 2 back at the end of each of your turns, but that is how that works. Umbral Ice. Certain effects grant you Umbral Ice. While under the effects of Umbral Ice, your ice-affected abilities restore 5 MP each time they deal damage. Umbral Ice is removed when you are granted Astral Fire, or if the effect is not renewed at the end of your next turn. Astral Fire, same kind of thing. You're granted Astral Fire. Under the effects of Astral Fire, fire-aspected abilities deal an additional 1d6 damage, and you do not recover MP at the end of the adventure step. Astral Fire is removed when you are granted Umbral Ice, or if the effect is not renewed at the end of your next turn. So, you have big bets. And then Thunderhead Ready. Whenever you are granted Umbral Ice, while not under the effect of Umbral Ice, or Astral Fire when you're not under the effect of Astral Fire, grants Thunderhead Ready. So just like it is now, whenever you switch from Fire to Ice, you get Thunderhead Ready. You cannot use a Thunder Spell ability to inflict a dot on a character after suffering from a dot inflicted by one of your Thunder Spell abilities. Okay, so if they've got that dot, they have that dot. And the condition for both of these is under the effect of Thunderhead Ready. Okay? So you can only use Thunder Spells when you switch from Fire or Ice. So your rotation would probably be standing still and focusing and just casting... Let's see. Probably, if we're being quite honest, using Transpose down here to grant Astral Fire or removes Astral Fire. Oh no, you have to be under one of those. I see. So, first turn, you could open up and just be, say, I'm going to cast Fire, and then Fire again. So it's consecutive invocation. So then it's going to deal, if it hits, let's say it does, a d6 plus 3. Then the very next one, it's going to deal 2d6 plus 3. Then at the end of your turn, you'll remove Astral Fire and go into Umbral Ice so that you'll gain some MP back, because you've only got 1 left at this point. And then you can start your next turn off with, like, a Blizzard, get all your mana back. Transpose, and then, if you want to, Transpose after that. And then you're in Astral Fire, and you cast Fire again. So you could just, stay still and kind of move and shift back and forth between these abilities. It's wild. Blizzard 2 and Fire 2 do the same things as their single target components, which are these two up here. But they just hit in a 5x5 area. Sleep, inflicts sleep. Transpose removes Umbral Ice and grants Astral Fire, or vice versa. Thunder and Thunder 2, those are your dots. Lucid Dreaming is the additional MP. Mana Font fully restores MP and grants Thunderhead Ready. Just immediately, boom, I'm ready to do whatever. And Mana Ward grants a barrier of 2 HP. Just in case. And Scathe costs an MP and deals 4 damage to the target. Which is... not your weakest ability, but man, if you're rolling really poorly, or even just to ensure that you hit, because again, staying still means you get 2 secondary abilities. So you can cast, is that even better? No, that's not better. And just deal 8 damage to a target. Otherwise, you could be dealing at least 2d6 plus 6. Or the average of 1d6 plus 3 twice, which is going to be about 12 damage. Roughly. So if you're rolling really poorly, Scathe is there for you to just be 4 damage to a thing. We got Swift Cast, immediately use a magic ability, and Addle. Immediately before an ability is used by the enemy is resolved, you reduce the damage dealt by the target's abilities by 2 until the end of this turn. So, again, mitigation. More mitigation from these guys. That is very Black Mage. I like that. Black Mage is a class I very much like, but man, it hurts my hands. But I am an old man. And then lastly, but certainly not leastly, we have... Oh, I did take a screenshot for the pets. Okay, we'll look at those. Summoner. Ooh. Summoner was the first class that I ever played in Final Fantasy XIV. Gosh, just a really good class. I really like it. And that was when, like, pets were like pets instead of just ways to gain extra abilities very quickly like they are now. But we get, at level 30, right out of the gate, Ether Dam. Certain effects get you Ether Flow. You can have up to 2 stacks of Ether Flow at any given time. At the start of an encounter, in each new phase, gain 2 stacks. Enhanced Ether Charge. Certain effects grant you Gemstone Arcanum. You can have up to 1 Gemstone Arcanum at any given time. Summon Carbuncle. At the start of every encounter, summon Carbuncle in your starting square. So that's just automatic. You have them out. Carbuncles resummon anytime you recover from being knocked out, as well as the start of a new phase. Your pet will transform when you use Summon Gem, or after obtaining level 40 Summon Edgy, or Summon Eggy. And then pet, you can summon a pet to aid you during fights. So just like Eos with Scholar, same thing. They go immediately before you do, disappear when you're knocked out. An Ether Charge. One under the effects of Ether Charge, Ruin 2, and Outburst have additional effects. Ether Charge is removed at the end of your turn. Okay. So what is this like now? So Ruin 2, it's just a basic spell, 3 damage. If this ability is used when under the effects of Ether Charge, deal an additional 1d6 damage. And if you hit, deal 2. So immediately this is very powerful. Because if you hit something when you're under Ether Charge, which is down here, just a secondary ability, it grants it to you, and 1 Gemstone Arcanum, then yeah, casting Ruin 2 is immediately 3d6 plus 3. Not bad. That's really good. And then Gemshine. Costs 2 MP. Has additional effects determined by your pet. And I'll have that page open right now, but we'll look at what pets do here in a minute. So the base effect is deal 4 damage to the target, deals an additional 2d6 damage. And the Gemstone Arcanum that we have... Boop, bop, boop. Oh, I guess we'll figure that's probably... Okay, yeah, that's other instant abilities. Well, let's look at that. We've skipped around enough. So an instant ability is a Gemstone Arcanum. When your pet begins its turn, is the trigger for this. Transforms your pet into Ruby Carbuncle, Topaz Carbuncle, or Emerald Carbuncle until the start of your pet's next turn. So this is every other turn. Like Ninja and Black Mage. This is not every turn you get to do this. This is every other turn. So you're going to want to use Ether Charge every turn. And every other turn, they'll benefit from using it. Yeah, that's kind of like the rotation for Summoner. You use a gem, and the pet comes out, and you do a thing. Then you use their abilities, then you summon another one. It takes some time, but you roll it out. You roll it out. Okay, so then if you're using Gemshine with a Ruby Carbuncle, and I'm just reading this from the book I have in front of me. We'll take a look at this. When the pet's summoned, your gem abilities become fire aspected and deal an additional 1d6 damage. When the pet enters a square occupied by an enemy, that enemy takes 1 damage. An enemy can only suffer damage from this effect once per turn. But then they have an ability so that the pet, then Glittering Ruby, or the red Carbuncle, his base abilities deal 3 damage to a target. So we would move, deal 3 damage to a target, then he can also move into that square and deal an additional damage. Okay. And then Topaz Carbuncle, when he's out, gem abilities become earth aspected, and you deal an additional 2 damage. Instead of an additional 1d6. And you also take 1 less damage from abilities. And then their ability, they go and attack, they deal an AoE. Then Emerald Carbuncle, all your gem abilities are wind aspected, and you can target 2 additional characters within 10 squares of you. Your speed is increased by 1. And then... Wow, 2 additional characters, that's awesome. And then Glittering Emerald, their attack would be... they move, and then within a 5x5 area within them, they inflict a dot on all targets. A dot of 2. That's not bad. That's really not bad. Okay. So yeah, every turn you'd want to do like Ether Charge, and then cast some spells and do some stuff. And then on your next turn, your pet goes before you do. They use the summon gem, you change them to whatever you want, and then they take their turn and do their thing. And then this lasts until the start of your pet's next turn. Oh, no, they can change. Okay, I see. So you'll want to use Ether Charge every turn then. On turn 2, they transform. On turn 3, on turn 2, you use this. At the start of turn 3, your pet has the Gemstone Arcanum, and they can either transform into Ruby, Topaz, or Emerald Carbuncle. It's on a turn where you don't use this, that at the start of your next turn, they go back to just being a regular Carbuncle. I got it. So then, like Gemshine, if I transform them into the Emerald Carbuncle, I can target 2 additional characters within 10 squares of me. So I can use Gemshine on 2 additional characters, all for the cost of 2 MP, and deal 2d6 plus 4 wind aspected damage, if they're weak to that kind of a thing, maybe. And deal that out. That is awesome. All for 2 MP. That's super good. Oh my god. Precious Brilliance is that same kind of a thing. Oh my god, an AoE Emerald Carbuncle Precious Brilliance, just the whole battlefield is screwy, if such a thing needs to be. Sleep, they got Sleep again. They also have Resurrection, just like they do in the game, so they're the other caster that can resurrect people. And then Outburst deals 2 damage to all targets. If this ability is used while under the effects of Ether Charge, deals an additional 1d6, and if it hits, deals 1d6. So Outburst is... It's not a gem ability. So that's like the AoE for Ruin 2. And then we got our heal ability that just takes our pet and says, right by me. Ether Charge, we want to use that every round. Lucid Dreaming, and then Physic. So if we want to heal somebody, or be able to heal somebody, we really want to stay still, so we can use Ether Charge and then Physic somebody. Or if we need to summon our pet back to us, stay still and use Ether Charge and heal. And that is just restore 2 HP to the target. So Physic is not much, but it is something. If worse comes to worse, it is something. And then instant ability, Summon Gem, that transforms our pet. Energy Drain, deals 3 damage to the target and grants 2 stacks of Ether Flow. Okay. We start with 2. And that is the only thing so far of our abilities that grants us Ether Flow. Because then Fester uses a stack of Ether Flow. And when any character ends their turn, deal 5 damage to the target. Which is just a great little, like, boom, immediately. So yeah, in a single phase of a combat, kind of like we do now, we start with 2 stacks of Ether Flow at the beginning of each phase. So we just want to do like Fester on a target, or whenever they take their turn, and then Energy Drain, and then Fester again. That is awesome. And then let's take a look at pets real quick, because I do have a screenshot of them so you can see what it was that I was reading. So that's what we were reading for Carbuncle. If the Carbuncle's just out, when this pet is summoned, you recover an MP when your MP falls to 0, which is so nice. It can only be used once per turn, but hey, you go to 0, then you get 1. At the end of the player's turn, you get another 2. And so you've got a good amount of mana. You'll get low, but you might never run out. And then the Ruby Carbuncle is there, Topaz, and Emerald, which is all the things that I was reading. But then as we go up in level 40, 50, 55, and 60, they become Ifrit's Eggy, Titan Eggy, and Garuda Eggy. And their abilities change, and they get better stuff. Their abilities are better. And our Carbuncle just kind of never changes. Our little boy never changes. Except for when we get to level 50, we grant a barrier of 2 HP to the target, which is not bad. And barriers like damage over times, they don't stack. You just take whatever's better. So barrier of 1 is not bad. Actually quite good. There's a range of 10 squares, so you can literally give that, if you're playing, you can give that to the tank. right? If they don't have a barrier ability yet, or you can just give it to yourself, or give it to the black mage over there who's firmly rooted in the ground. But then for scholars, ignore my big-ass thumb, Eos gets Embrace or Whispering Dawn. So again, like, pets go before you do. If you're playing a scholar, before you go, Eos can run around and heal 2 HP to a target, and then you can heal a target. So it's just free. Or Whispering Dawn grants Revivify 2 to all targets. That's once per phase, but again, Revivify is like a damage over time, but it's a heal over time. And so that just means, like, at the beginning, you could do that once per phase, so a scholar has every insistence to be like, get nearby my pet, and then they put them as best they can nearby, get a 5v5 area centered on that pet, and just revivify all your party members so that every round they're gaining 2 HP every turn until the end of the phase. And then if there's a new phase, not a problem, they do it again. But then at level 40, they also get Fey Illumination, which is all allies within 2 squares of this pet may change the value of a single die of their choosing to a 6 when determining the amount of HP healed. That is awesome. They can only do that once per phase, but that's still really good. And it grants the following trait until the start of this pet's next turn. Okay. It's the same thing there. So now, out of sheer curiosity, because again, that was real, it was meant to be. It was real fast and loose. I wanted to like go through all of these different classes and figure out like what their rotations were like, because things are really different. They're very involved. Tanks less so much and healers less so much, but all the damage dealing classes have rotations. This is very much a game about figuring out exactly what ability goes where and why and for what reason. And doing it in the right orders. So let me take a peek. Let me take a peek, because I have Summoner, Scholar, and Bard. Level 60s. Let's look at Bard. Well, no, let's not look at Bard, because I think that was in the thing. Let's look at... Let me look at Scholar, because I'm interested in looking at Scholar level 60. What does a healer look like at the endgame of it all? So here I just took a picture of the page, because this is all level 60. So it just looks like for the primary abilities for Scholar at level 60, damage goes up. Deal like Broil is 2d6 plus 8 instead of, oh, let me compare here. Instead of 2d6 plus 3. So base damage is, oh no, I'm sorry. The wrong dingle thing. Scholar's my favorite healer. Yeah, instead of like a d6 plus 2, it's 2d6 plus 8. So immediately damage is going up. And that's a healer, so everybody else's damage is going to be stupid. Resurrection is better at 2d6 plus 4 instead of 1d6 plus 2. Repose is still there. At Locrium, at level 30, it's 1d6 plus 3. Here, it's 1d6 plus 8. So, baseline, it's a better heal. And I think the value doesn't increase because, again, we're getting Fairy Heal. Which goes from... Ooh, I need to check that out, too. That's a big part to Scholar as well. Scholar level 6. Eos is healing 6 HP to the target. Just automatically. Start of their turn, they'll move to a target, heal you for 6. So, Locrium doesn't need to be that bad. Or be much better. Also because it grants a barrier equaling the amount of HP restored to the target. So that's... At lowest, you rolled a 1 on the die. That is 18 effective health recovered. Might not be much, level 60. Sucker is 1d6 plus 4, but that's a barrier to everybody. That's an AoE. We get a lot of extra stuff. There's Bio 2, it's a dot of 6, that's not bad. Physic is 2d6 plus 4. Asuna Lucid Dreaming. Ruin 2 is now a secondary ability. and it only costs 1. So this is not available at level 30. In fact, we get that at level 40 for Scholar. So now our turn, at level 30, it's choosing between whether we're like trying to heal somebody twice or just casting a spell and being done with it. Here, it's literally, we can cast 2 damage-dealing spells, or a dot and a damage-dealing spell all on a single turn, or heal and deal damage, or, if we're staying completely still, casting Ruin 2 twice and Broil, if we really want to. And Ruin 2, instead of going from a die check, it's just automatic. Ruin 2 is just automatic. That is really nice. Art of War. Base effect deals 4 damage to all targets. Okay. Yeah, not bad. Really not bad. That's actually quite good. That's their AoE ability. Just run in and just start slamming the ground. And then Dissipation. Dismisses your pet from the encounter map and grants 3 stacks of Ether Flow. Your pet cannot be resummoned this phase, even if you are revived after being knocked out. That is really rough. I don't know if I like that, because at level 60, it's 6 HP for free every round on top of any other healing that you're doing. So that is really there. Oh, here we go. Here we go. It's all in the instant abilities. There we are. Swift Cast, Sure Cast, ignore all movement effects until the end of a turn. Lustrate is 1 stack of Ether Flow. Restore 16 HP to the target. So now we're starting to get our Ether Flow abilities, our Ether Flow powers. Energy Drain. And let's see here, what grants us Ether Flow? Well, Ether Flow, we get 3 stacks at the start of an encounter. So then we have to dissipate our pet to get more Ether Flow. Whew. That's rough. That's very rough. But these are the big ones. Sacred Soil. Create a 5x5 area centered on the target square. While inside this area, allies take 4 less damage from abilities. The area is removed at the end of the phase, so Sacred Soil is awesome. It is still really good in the video game. It lasts for a while, but man. This just lasts for the whole fight. Just like, stay here. Indomitability is just like Lustrate. It's just a big heal. And this is when any character ends their turn. So immediately, someone ends their turn, just whoosh. Deployment Tactics. When you use a single target ability to grant your character a barrier. To grant a character a barrier. So the target is all allies within range. The range is a 5x5 area centered on that character. Grants a barrier equaling that of the character whose barrier triggered Deployment Tactics on to all targets. Okay. Okay. So I see how it works. So when you use a single target ability to grant a character a barrier. So you would really want to use that after doing like Adloquium. Especially because it's a bigger die. If you roll a 6 and you get a whole bunch, just be like, oh, by the way, Deployment Tactics. Because it doesn't remove that barrier. Because the target is all allies within range, excluding the character whose barrier triggered it. So you target that character, it doesn't remove their barrier or get them another one, but it just spreads that barrier around. And then Emergency Tactics. Immediately before you use an ability that grants a barrier, all targets of the ability that triggered Emergency Tactics within range. The ability that triggered Emergency Tactics does not grant a barrier, instead restoring HP equaling the intended value of the barrier to all targets. And that's twice per phase. So if you just need a really big heal, you just need a big ol' heal, then yeah, Adloquium for sure. Instead, just what does 1d6 plus 8? You make that roll, double that value, and that's how much you heal instead. Not bad. Really not bad. I like it. So let's go back here. Oh, there's Wario. Okay. And so that's a lot of those are all the characters at level 30. That's all of the Final Fantasy TTRPG, like, effects, abilities, everything that goes on. Let's go to... Whoops. Let's go to our notepad. And let's see here. Can I increase the... There we go. So, let's go with pros again. I mean, here's one. Right off the top of my brain. Very involved combat system. That's also a con. It's just got a very involved combat system. For better or for worse. I, for one, like that. It's going to feel very board gamey. Which, again, is a good thing and a bad thing. But this does make it highly tactical. And that's a good thing. Right? I would say that's also a bad thing, but that comes down to what you want. There's some very involved combat that's not tactical at all. This is really tactical. Movement is encouraged or required. That's the same from the starter set. Not much of that has changed. Oh, there I am. Off in the corner. That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight losing my religion. I don't know if I can do it. Oh, I've said too much. I haven't said enough. What's another pro? Let's think of another pro here. I know one. Beginner-friendly character creation. One of the things I liked about Candle Obscura, which we haven't looked at on the channel, or on a stream, but I got the game, I read it, and I was kind of like, okay. One thing I really like about it is its playbook. So you go, I want to play this class. Great, here's the playbook for that class. Customize it a little bit, and you're off. Like, character creation takes less than 5 minutes. I also really like that about Daggerheart, because... same thing, playbook, here's your character sheet, you fill in a couple of numbers, you get some equipment, change some of those numbers, pick some cards, and you're done. And that's it. Your whole character is done. And then everything else is roleplay at that point. What are your experiences? What are your connections to other players? All that. So character creation is very, very fast and fluid. This is very beginner friendly. It is very much like, here's a profile. There's like 2 whole pages dedicated on how to create a backstory for your character and like what to include, what to avoid, all of that stuff, how to create traits, all of that. Also very thematic. There are very few TTRPGs on the market that provide as much detail as this one does for making a character in the world and setting they want you to play in. Very few. This gives you names, naming conventions, cultures, all sorts of stuff very quickly. And it's nothing that you wouldn't be able to find elsewhere. But just as a bundle, as a package, just being like, you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to log on to Lodestone or anything like that. Just like, boom, here it is. Very, very thematic. This is going to get you into the world of Eorzea very, very quickly. Including all the section about, like, Eorzea and all that. This is also a con as well. We'll talk about it. And this is a pro and a con just based on where you are. What I mean by this, and let's actually specify. But this is one-shots. A lot of the Japanese tabletop community is based on like going out to a game cafe and playing a game with your friends, family, or people that you meet there. Because very few people are like inviting friends or strangers to their house because it's usually very small. Well, at the very least in like big cities, right? But either way, it's not encouraged in Japan to go through like big, huge campaigns that are linked together by sessions that if you miss one, oh my god, crazy shit happened. You gotta. It's very either episodic or one-shot encouraged. That's how a lot of their games are designed in Japan by Japanese game developers. Ryutama was another one that's very similar. Episodic, it can take place in the same world, but episodic. You can miss one and not miss anything. You know, you just pick up where you left off. Carbuncle. You just pick up where you left off, right? Same thing here. Because of the leveling system, where you just kind of like pick a level, and you just play that level because of the way you get finances, because of the way that you get powers or abilities or things of that nature. It is very much encouraged for one-shot style play. A big pro, though, is its very flexible class system, and oh, there was something else I was going to say. Very flexible class system and level system for all skill levels of play. It's right there. So the class system, very flexible. You can play one character 1 week and next week be like, hey, I didn't want to play a tank. Can I play a DPS instead? Of course. Boom! You're a DPS. Don't have to make a new character. You can still stay who your character is, who they are, what they're going through. All of that is very, very good. And I really like that. The level system is great for all of skill levels of play. Like we saw, level 30, for the most part, has a couple of abilities or a singular rotation and not a whole lot of options outside of that. If you're new to TTRPGs, or you're new to this one, or you're new to MMORPGs in general, or you don't really know what it is that you want, this is a good place to start for you. So you don't have to worry about a whole lot of that stuff. It's just good for all skill levels of play. Meanwhile, like we saw, at level 60, you've got a lot of different options. Your turns can look radically different. Your rotations might be huge and multi-turn. You know, they're much, much bigger and much more involved in that way. So you can gradually make your way up from that. Basically, when players say, like, hey, can we, like, get some level ups and get some more stuff? Sure. Or you can just start there. If your players have played this before, or they're not shy to tabletop games or tabletop RPGs, or they're, you know, very, very analytical when they look at stuff like this and just go like, okay, cool, I got it. Start at level 60. Or anywhere in between there, based on the skill of the players that are currently in play. That being said, a con of this system is that there's a large focus on character. There's a big focus in this game. Like, again, character creation is huge on, like, making a backstory for yourself, choosing a title. You can get some mounts. You can do these adventures off to the side. You can do all this extra stuff. Things over here, things over there. It's not just fighting. It's not just fighting. You can do a bunch of other stuff. But there are very few mechanics that actually support that. So a lot of that is coming down. Even the checks system is roll a d20, add your stat, you make it or you don't. That's it. And you've got, I think, 5 stats, and that's it. And no, I think 6. You got 6 stats, and that's kind of it. It's dependent entirely on your job. And for the most part, as you play through the game, a lot of those mechanics are going to predominantly have to come from your game master and from your gaming group. Because of that, and this is part of it, so we'll just add to it. you might need to be an experienced game master to feel comfortable running this system. Because as you read it, you go, okay, cool, combat. It's a big one. All the class information is here. Classes are very in-depth. It's very much about the abilities and the abilities they're using and when they want to use them. Combat is a big focus of this. Okay, cool. And there's just a little bit on like roleplay and extra stuff between adventures. Okay, cool, fine. And you read through the scenarios that they provide, and there's a good amount of roleplay. And some combat that happens. There's maybe like, for every 2 roleplay scenes, there's probably a combat scene that occurs. So it's going to take some interpreting from a game master to figure out how much they're going to have to actually do to figure out how much they're going to have to do in order to make sure that this game works and feels good from a role-playing perspective. That might take some experience, because the book itself is doing very, very little to help you along that way, save for giving you words of encouragement. Any other kind of con that I can think of? I mean, I would say this. Battlemat is required. There is no theater of the mind playing here at all. None. It is 0. You need a Battlemat. The edition I got the deluxe edition, comes with some really nice ones that you can write on and erase and all of that stuff. You can print some out. Some come in the starter edition as well. There's some maps there too. You can print your own and make your own, but you're going to need it. It is going to be required. And another one that is a con. There is very little support from this from anywhere official. I've tried to look and check. There's very, very little out there. There was no PDF of this. Otherwise, we would have looked at that instead of really scuffed-looking photos from my phone. There is no PDF character sheet. Like I said, there's a whole, like 3 or 4 pages of tokens from the scenarios this book uses. You're going to have to either take apart the binding of this physical book that costs a lot of, at least, what, $60 to get? Take apart the binding and make a PDF yourself, or just flatten it on a screen copier and make copies yourself and then cut them out. There's no digital character sheet. That just doesn't exist. So again, you either have to scan it or make one yourself. There's no VTT support. For as much as this requires battle mats, there is no official website that's like putting out a new battle mat every month. Being like, oh, this area, that area, do this, do that. Here's a big one, here's a small one. It's required. And the only ones that exist that I can see are the ones, again, here in this book that you can print out. And one very nice thing is they say, hey, if you print it out at this magnification, each square will be 1 inch, which is nice. But again, you've got to find the right printer that will print at that size and then cut it, or make them with external programs and then do things that way. There's very little official support for this. Very, very little. For a game like this, you don't need online character creators. You don't need like an online character sheet, but there needs to be like a PDF that you can just print out and print out a bunch of copies for. And that doesn't exist. It would be super easy for them to make a bunch of digital PDFs of all the classes at all the different levels, and you just print them out and characters just write in their name, their personality, like things they get, and all the skills and abilities are on the other side. It'd be really easy for them to do. But that doesn't exist. There's very, very little for it. The only kinds you can find is fan only. So when we read through the starter set last time, I found digital copies because someone made them and scanned them for all the enemies, all the maps, all the tokens, all the everything. Somebody made that. Somebody will do the same for this, I'm almost certain. They'll probably have to deface their copy of the book to do it, just because of the way it's bound. But any support for this game is going to be from fans, which is a bummer. Because again, accessibility is part of the trinity of things that gets games sold. It's accessibility, art, and Game Master support. That's what gets games sold and played and moved off of shelves. And it's not here. A lot of the artwork in this is really good. They have like some hand-drawn artwork. They have some chibi artwork in here, which is really nice and funny, but there's better artwork in the starter set. A lot of this here is either concept art or official art that they've just kind of plugged into various areas. It's good. It's really good. But nothing new. Very, very, very little that is new that's art-wise in this book. So not a whole lot of new art, no way to really make things accessible, and not a whole lot of tools in this book for the Game Master to help run the game. So I don't know how many copies this is going to ship. The Game Master guide and scenario guide, which is also admittingly a con, the game suggests, like, hey, you can run custom scenarios. You absolutely can do that if you want to, but there's no information on how to do that in these pages. None. You either have to infer it, like, for instance, most enemies at level 30 are going to deal, like, a d6 plus 4 damage, or like a flat 4 damage, and a d6 if they hit, and they've got about 40 HP. Bosses have somewhere around 100 to 120. And you can infer that because most damage-dealing classes are dealing somewhere on average about 10 damage per round, per turn that they take. And tanks and healers are probably dealing somewhere around, maybe somewhere between 5 or 10 on average. So that works out. Like, an enemy will last a round of combat, maybe a little more. But that is inferred by me because none of that is in the book. Just the stat blocks of enemies, custom made and tailored for this. There's no bestiary available. So making custom scenarios is entirely based on inference and guesswork, which means you could have some that are total meat grinders and others that are perfectly balanced. As of right now, they have a Game Master and scenario book that should be released. It still says coming soon on the TTRPG website. So we don't know if it's coming out, and we don't know when. And we also don't know what the hell is going to be in it. So there might be rules and help to build your own scenarios. There might be nothing. We don't know. It's a bummer. So yeah, there's kind of my take on it. More cons than pros. Equally distributed, however you like to think of it. My thoughts on it, just from reading it, again, I haven't run this. I have not run this game. My thoughts on it, though, are that I cannot wait to run it. Whether there's a board game cafe, or like a tabletop cafe that I'm nearby, and I went in there with Fabula Ultima, being like, is anybody interested in this? And nobody had heard of it, and I told them it's a TTJRPG, and they're like, oh, like Final Fantasy XIV? And I was like, yeah, just like that. So now if I go in there and I'm like, does anyone want to play this? It's literally going to be, yeah, just like Final Fantasy XIV. Which has a really cool setting, really cool jobs. I love the tactical nature of the gameplay here. I feel like I'm experienced enough. I'm by no means a Matt Mercer or a Bria Iyengar, but I'm experienced enough to be able to run this with good enough roleplay opportunities throughout. And because I have Final Fantasy XIV, I can go to all the different areas of the game and get NPC names to my heart's galore, right? I don't have to worry about a dingly-dangle thing. The scenarios that they give are already pretty good. I think there's a total of 6. There's 3 in the starter set, 3 in this book. So that's not bad. For a variety of levels, that's quite good. But after that, if you run through those real quick, then you have to start making up your own scenarios. And at that point, you've got to start figuring out through inference how they're balancing it. And For the most part, I would say this is only really good for 4 players. A tank, a healer, 2 damage dealers. If you're missing any players, throw in an extra chocobo. I would really just throw in an extra chocobo healer so that they can fill the spot of like an extra healer to make sure heals are going out. Or damage dealer if you don't have any of those. Or up to 8. And I think if you hit the 6 to 7 player mark, then start throwing in like extra tank chocobos or extra healer chocobos. Whatever the case might be. Like little companion. And these are companions that have a movement and 1 or 2 simple actions to take. So players don't have to Jaeger 2 whole character sheets. They just have their character sheet, all their abilities, and then a little chocobo friend. So that's how I would run it. But with this, I'm finally comfortable running it now. With the starter set, I wasn't really, because there's so much extra, like, what if we want to do this? What if we want to do that? And I don't know. Now I am. I'm comfortable running this at any level, I think. And then when the Game Master Guide comes out, I get that, and hopefully it works out well. But that was it for me, everybody. I've got to get going. I've gone on for way longer than I need to. I've gone on for way longer than I usually do. I've had that up long enough. Everybody knows what it's about now. Whew. That was a lot of talking. But that was that. One day, I might do a live play of that. One of these days. But that is something on my to-do list, is to set up Foundry or another VTT for those kind of character sheets that they have in the book and just start importing stuff like crazy. That is the goal. Yes! I might do that with Roll, actually. Or I think you can make digital... Yeah. There's also Kiln, so that's an option too. Now I'm getting ahead of myself. That's it for me, everybody. I've got to get going. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is a very weird stream. I like doing these TTRPG reviews, and I mean, again, this isn't a review, but I like talking about them, cracking open the book or the PDF and talking about them. Especially indie games or weird ones that folks don't often get a chance to see. And I love Final Fantasy XIV. It is my favoritist game of all time. I really, really like it. So I hope you enjoyed what it was that we did here today. It was super weird, especially at the beginning, but we managed to get through it. So thank you very much for joining me. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. And I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 for something R&R related. Who knows? Good night, everybody.